Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly Podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lifford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast.
Okay, Danny, let's get started.
Today's Homeowner Podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. This week, we offer some solutions on roof stains. You may have some stains on your roof. We'll tell you what you can do about it. Also, a ceramic tile that you can install and grout the same day. And we also like to look at bathrooms and how you can really improve your bathroom on a budget. And what is the best air purifier? You got to get that air inside your house cleaner. We'll tell you a great step on that.
And I've got a simple solution about exercise. Everybody knows the importance of exercise, but how about exercising your plumbing valves? Have you thought about that? Probably not, but there's a good reason why you should be doing that, and I'll be talking more about that in the upcoming simple solution.
Okay, here we go. Let's get started. Right now, we're going to visit someone that visited us a few weeks ago, Jim in Virginia. Jim, good to hear from you again. Tell us what's going on there.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Sure.
Of course. How you doing?
Good. I was pleasantly surprised with the outcome. Very easy. I had to go online to get the two-pound container of the acrylic acid,
Right.
because all the other big box stores or hardware stores only had the 5 pounds.
Jim, let's back up just a tad and tell our listeners, because we didn't really set this up. So we mentioned briefly a little while ago that you had called in with some roof stain issues. We had recommended something, and we wanted to see the results. So you tell us exactly what you bought and how you went about getting the rust off your roof.
Okay. Bought acrylic acid online, 2 pounds. The stains were on the roof. We were able to access it from our upstairs bathroom window, so no ladders were involved.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, good.
So I bought a very inexpensive pump sprayer. Used about 8 ounces of the acrylic acid to 1 gallon of water. Saturated the stain from my perch at the window. Used a long-handled brush that we normally use for a car.
Mm-hmm.
So it was soft, so it wouldn't take the damage to shingles.
That's good. Good.
So we did that. 1 saturation, 1 brushing, let it sit for about half an hour, went back and saturated again, another brushing, and that was it. The results were in the pictures that I sent you, and very pleasantly surprised with the outcome.
Well, we saw the pictures. It is kind of amazing because that was quite a concentration of stains that was running down in that particular part. And, it's one of those things that I'll bet every time you drove up to your house, you had to look at it, and you just, I wish that wasn't there. So that's one of those things that kind of constantly gets to you. Well, I'm glad the results were so good on that, and we know the oxalic acid works really, really well in that situation, and it's passive enough that it's not going to, affect plants or cause any other damage like regular chlorine bleach certainly can. So that's pretty good. See, Joe, some of this advice we give does work sometimes.
Yeah,
buddy.
every now and then, huh?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm glad you got in touch with us. And the reason that it works is oxalic acid, there are insoluble iron compounds in the rust, and the oxalic acid takes those insoluble compounds and transfers them and converts them into soluble so they can be washed out. That's the reason it's often used, oxalic acid is often used in industrial cleaning, laundry cleaning. So that's why it works on your roof. And it'll be interesting to see now, do these roof stains, these rust stains on your roof reappear because there's something up there rusting, right? If it's not been replaced. And if it does, at least now you have a way to get rid of it. You have 2 pounds of this acid. So store it safely, and I'm sure thankfully you have a really easy way to get to the roof coming through the bathroom window. So that's great. So I'm really glad that worked for you.
It shouldn't happen again. It was a drain line from the HVAC system, an emergency drain line. So that's been taken care of. So,
oh, great.
Hopefully we won't have to use it. Maybe we'll use it on some concrete stains that we have around the pool.
There you go. Good.
Any iron stains caused by rusting, the oxalic acid should work. In fact, I'm getting a new roof put on my house, and I was talking to the contractor, and he recommended, I'm not using this particular roof, but he recommended one that he's been installing. I think the company's called Atlas, and they actually have a Scotch Guard coating on the asphalt roof shingles for that exact reason, to try to prevent roof staining. So it is a problem. So I'm glad you were able to fix that.
Yep, and I do have a problem with the front of the house with mold and stuff because it's a Dutch colonial, and I have a lot of trees.
Yeah.
So it's something. It's always something with a homeowner.
Oh, yeah. Well, and Jim, I'll tell you, you might want to, while you're on the internet there, stop by wetandforget.com, one of our partners that have been with us for many, many years, and a product that we've used an awful lot. And I think you'll be intrigued by their outdoor product, because it's something that you can put on the end of a hose and just spray it on your house, and that's it. And then between Mother Nature and this amazing product, it will take care of all of your mold, mildew, anything that you might have on the outside of your house. It has worked really, really well for me over the past.
I have used it, and I'm very happy with that. I just did my steps on the front of the house where I get a little bit of mildew, and it just took it within a week. I could tell a difference.
Wow,
Yeah, that's good.
That's
good,
great.
Good.
Sounds like you need to trim back some of those trees, Jim. You got mold growing everywhere.
I tell you, but the leaves are getting ready to fall. That's going to be another challenge.
Well, Jim, thanks so much for following up with us. And we're here if you have any other challenge or any other issue around your home. And we all hope here at Today's Homeowner you have a great weekend.
You do the same, guys.
Okay, thank you very
Thanks.
much. Alrighty, let's get a quick email here. Ross from Maryland says, in an effort to cut our electric bill, I'm thinking about getting solar-powered panels installed on our home's roof. Now, I've received a lot of flyers in the mail from companies offering free solar-powered systems, including parts and labor. I assume it's not truly free, so what's the catch? I guess on some of those situations, Joe, you got to be really, really careful on that. But I know there's been a lot of tax incentives that have been applied here and there in different states, and I think even the federal level they had some at some point. But boy, you got to read the fine print on any of those deals.
Yeah, and especially it's always changing depending on the political environment in our country. But if the question is, how are they really free? They are actually free. There are typically two ways to get solar. Solar leasing, which is also known as PPA, power purchase arrangement, which you get completely free installed and everything else. But the problem is any benefit as far as rebates you don't receive, the company does. And the other way to get it is called outright ownership, where you just pay for it, you maintain it, and you get 100% of the energy savings and the rebates and everything else. So check your area. I mean, if you can afford to do outright ownership, that's probably the best move for most homeowners.
Let's go right to Today's Homeowner Hotline. Keith is down in Florida.
Hey, Danny and Joe. This is your old buddy, Keith Briggs, in Miami, Florida, and Southwest Harbor, Maine. I have a question today about the main house. We're thinking of putting in a gas fireplace, or actually freestanding gas stove, and we need to vent it through the chimney. An existing chimney is about 100 years old, and here's my problem. There was an existing original wood stove on the opposite side of the chimney from where we need to put the new stove. So there's an existing hole there. And I'm wondering if we put a new hole on the opposite side of the chimney, is that going to weaken the chimney structurally and possibly cause a collapse? And if there's a risk of that, what do I need to do to the old flue hole to patch it or structurally make it sound again?
Okay, all right. That was Keith from Florida. That's one of the recording calls we get quite a bit on the Today's Homeowner Hotline. Encourage you to do the same, 800-946-4420. Joe, kind of a tricky question there. First of all, if he's not using and we know, you know exactly what he's talking about with that 8-inch flue right on the, probably little, maybe 6 or 7 feet off the floor, that kind of thing. I would certainly think if that's not being used, that would be good to cobble some brick and stone and fill that in so that you're taking that void out of that side of the chimney just for maybe an abundance of caution before he uses the other side to cut a hole in for his gas vent. Wouldn't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we don't know what size chimney this is. It's 100 years old, but I've seen chimneys around here in New England that are well over 200 years old and are doing great. So if it's a large enough chimney, I mean, if it's a 16-inch square chimney or smaller and you're going to have to got 2 big 8-inch holes directly opposite each other, you might be weakening it a little bit. And the thing to do is either call in a mason, have him inspect it, and they could certainly cut out the brick. It's probably a round hole. They can cut out enough brick to make a square or rectangular opening and fill it with new brick. If someone looks at it and says, this chimney's in great shape, having another hole is not going to affect it structurally, they do make a product, I think it's generically called a thimble hole stop plug. Thimble is the pipe that they have, the cover in the pipe that goes into the chimney. And it's essentially just a round plug. It's an insulated plug, usually made out of steel and then some kind of ceramic to hold in heat. And you just put it in a hole and you tighten it up, and that's it. There's a company called Insul plug, I think. Insul, like insulate, INSUL, and then plug. They're pretty expensive. They're $120 or $130, but it takes literally 3 or 4 minutes to put it in. Put it in a hole, tighten it up, and it squeezes on either side of the brick.
Oh, I see.
And that seals out any kind of drafts or gases, and it's heat resistant, so it's not going to get harmed by any of the smoke or hot flue gases. That would certainly be, if you can do that, that's what I'd recommend. You're probably not going to see it anyway. It's just, and it just looks like a black round plate.
Joy in back in North Carolina here. I'm removing the tub in our master bath and replacing it with a walk-in shower. There's a large window over the tub. I'd like to cover the window so we can tile the shower walls, but I'd also like to leave the top of the window open to let in some light. Is that possible? I wouldn't recommend that because it's going. You have the issue. I've dealt with this many, many times. The best thing to do there, Joy, in my opinion, is to remove that window and install a transom window. You can buy a window, or you'll have to have it made, but it's not very expensive because it's generally very small, maybe 10 inches tall by 3 or 4 feet wide, and position it up to where it is above the actual where the shower wall will be. I did this exact same thing in 2 of my bathrooms in my new house, and it still gives you plenty of that light. And you can even get a transom that opens. It has a little slide window in order to get a little ventilation in there if you want. So that's what I would recommend because, Joe, I'll tell you, I've seen all kinds of creative ways of putting shutters and insulation and things over an existing window to keep from disturbing the outside. You can still use those fake shutters on the outside to keep from having to, fill in the siding or the brick or whatever. But boy, you got to be careful of that moisture that can get in from the outside.
Yeah, whenever you're taking a window out of the house, the other consideration is this the front of the house? And what's it going to look like if suddenly there's a window missing? So if it's in the back of the house, of course, it's not an issue. But yeah, it's nice having that light in the bathroom. And then the other option is just get rid of the window altogether. And if you're on the top floor of the house, if the attic's above, you can put in one of those solar skylights. Solar skylights. You just let the light straight into the bathroom.
Want to remind you about today's Homeowner Hotline. 1-800-946-4420 is how you can reach us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, just like Alan from Mississippi did, who's on the phone right now. Alan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Danny, thanks for having me.
Good. So tell us about this bathroom and some of the ideas you have.
Yes, sir. So me and my wife purchased kind of an older home, and the bathroom has some existing tile on the floor as well as the shower. And I was just curious, we want to do some updates in there and give it a different look, but we're sort of on a budget. Is that tile something we just need to take out, or do they make any paints or stains that could get us by and get us, to give it a different look and spruce it up a little bit?
Sure, I got you. I understand completely. Well, I'll tell you what, there are ways of using epoxy paint that's fairly expensive to paint areas like that, but it's really not recommended for wet areas like a shower.
Okay.
And also, you got to know that it gets a lot of abuse when it's on a floor. And another thing about it is, one of the beauties I've always felt with ceramic is that, if you have a white ceramic with white grout, to me that looks a little institutional. It doesn't have a lot of personality in it. But if you, so the grout defines the look of it as much as the tile itself in many cases. So one idea would be is to thoroughly clean all of the ceramic that you have in there. There's a number of ways we can recommend to get it really clean and let it dry. Then use a grout stain and change the color of your grout. Make it lighter, darker, different shade that it is now, and then that is very easy to do, and you can stain all of the grout, and then we would recommend coming back and sealing it after that so that you have even more durability and it'll hold up better. And you might be surprised at just that subtle difference of the grout, how it makes that tile, it looks okay now. The cleaning's going to help a lot, the deep cleaning as well as the staining, and that might be a good alternative. Joe, you deal with a lot of ceramic. Any suggestion you might have?
Yeah, Alan, I think painting is not a great idea no matter how good a paint it is. It's not going to hold up well under water or underfoot on the floor. And so the other thing you could do is take out some tile and replace it with either creating a border, let's say like in the shower area, maybe up 5 feet, a horizontal border of either different color tile or the same color tile that has a pattern painted onto it or stamped into it with a little chair rail above it, chair rail of tile, not wood, a chair rail wood tile, a bull nose, anything like that. And on the floor, you could do the same thing, pop out a couple of tiles in a certain pattern and then replace them with the same size tile that again has a different color or a different pattern on it. So you're basically just sort of dressing it up, but only replacing at the most maybe 10% of the tile. And that's a good way to change the look of it. And as Danny said, if you clean it really well and restain the grout, you'd be surprised how, with very little time or money invested in it, it would look completely different.
Okay. Well, yeah, that sounds great. That's given me a lot of ideas to move forward on. So I appreciate you guys.
Oh, good. And of course, you could replace the fixtures, the shower head, the trim, the shower head, the shower curtain. If you have a curtain, go to maybe consider a door. If you have a door, just consider going to a curtain. The ceiling, there's a certain thing you can do with the ceiling. You can tile the ceiling. I tiled the ceiling in our bathroom remodeling, and I love it. It's a whole different look, and of course, it's impervious to any of the moisture problems you might have with a painted ceiling.
And also on one of your countertop surfaces there's some really interesting coatings to go over whatever you have there that can change that and make it look more of like a stone finish. I've been amazed at some of the transformations we've seen when homeowners are using Deitch coatings. That's D-A-I-C-H coatings on some of their bathrooms. It's just amazing. With just a few hours, it can change it completely. So a lot of different ideas there. If you run into any snags, Alan, let us know. We're here to help any way we can.
All righty, Danny. I appreciate you guys taking my call. Me and my wife love the TV show, and we love Joe's Simple Solutions. So thank you guys for your work, and keep it up.
Oh, we appreciate that, Alan. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Alan.
Tell your wife I said hello, and you guys have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you.
Time for our Best New Product segment, brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done. I love tile projects, and I love the look and the durability of the material, but I got to say, I'm not a big fan of how long the process takes. You have to remove the old flooring, put down backer board, mortar the tile to it, wait for that to dry, then apply the grout. Well, that's what makes the new Dial Tile Quick Tile Porcelain Locking Floor so great. It saves tons of steps and time, and it can be installed over old hard surface flooring in 3 easy steps. You just lay down the special quick tile underlayment, click the tiles together, and grout with quick tile grout right away. You can complete a real porcelain tile floor in just one day. Plus, there's no need for spacers because the tile leaves a uniform 1/8-inch space when they're all snapped together. So head on over to homedepot.com to find out more information about this great product, Dial Tile Quick Tile Porcelain Locking Floor. I saw this at a trade show a few months ago, Joe, and they had it laid down there, and they were talking about it, and as they were talking about it, I just kept looking at the floor, and the floor looked so nice.
Right.
I had to say, are you talking about this floor? Because I just imagined something that wasn't quite nice and flat,
Right.
and it absolutely looked great.
That I would never have believed that was even possible to lay a tile floor without it being mortared down.
Yeah, and I would assume, there's some flexibility in this grout, because grout traditionally would be very rigid, but when you have something that's snapped together like that, you're going to have a little expansion and contraction. So
Sure.
pretty good. Good for them, and making it a little easier for everybody to enjoy the process of installing tile. That's great. Right now we're going to Oklahoma, and Terry's on the line with us. Terry, welcome to the Today's Homeowner Radio Show.
Well, thank you, sir.
All right, tell us about it. We've been talking a lot this week about, the healthy home, and certainly a lot to do with having a good, healthy interior of your home is having good interior air quality, and I think that's what your question was all about.
Yes, sir. What I'm looking for is a single room air purifier. Basically, one of the if you can find the best one available. But, initial investment, I was looking at around $150 with a yearly replacement filter of around $100.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that in that price range can't be had, then what is a good price range for a single room air purifier?
All right. Well, that's a good, fair question, and you get a lot of Boy, this is a good example where you go online and try to really get a straightforward opinion, and boy, you'll be all over the place on people saying, this one's the best. No, this one's the best. No, this is the best. So it's hard. Now, Joe has written articles about this in the past for several different magazines and websites and everything. Joe, it's still a hard question to answer, but what do you think we should tell Terry on this?
Yeah, and the reason, Terry, it's a hard question is because this industry is growing and changing constantly, especially these days, right? Everyone's spending more time indoors and trying to get the cleanest air possible. And I can tell you that first of all, you're in basically the right price range. If you spend around $150 up to $200, you should be able to get what you need for your home. And the units are sized, as if you've done a little bit of research, you probably realize they're sized for different size rooms, right? Because
yes, sir.
If it's a big room, you're going to need a bigger filter. So a bigger purifier. 3M makes a line called Filtrete, Filtrete, Filtrete. And the one I'm familiar with 3 of their models. I'm sure they make many more. And they go from about 170 square feet. They can purify the air in a room up to 170 square feet, from 170 up to about 370. And the prices range from about $110 to $200. So you can see you're right in the price range. For a 250 square foot air purifier, you're probably looking at $140 to $150. And that's a pretty good sized room. Replacement filters are typically you can get a 2-pack for about $25, which is, okay, that's pretty affordable, but how often do I have to change them? Well, that I can't tell you until I know what kind of filter you have, what kind of filter the unit would have. But I can tell you, generally speaking, a HEPA filter should be changed every year. So if it's a HEPA filter, the expense is pretty minimal. Some units have a pre-filter, meaning they filter the air before it gets to the main filter, and they last about a month, 30 or 40 days. So those you'd have to change more often, but those are much more affordable. And if it has a carbon filter, those would last 3 to 6 months. And again, you'd have to go by the recommendation of the manufacturer. And some units actually have a permanent filter that you don't have to change, but you have to remove them and clean them. And how often you have to clean them will depend on how dirty your air is, I guess. And maybe some of them have a light that will tell you when it's time to clean them, but it's usually 3 to 6 months. If they get damaged, though, you have to replace them, and those are the most expensive to replace. So that's sort of a general explanation of what air purifiers cost and how they function. But you'll have to do a little bit more research, to find one that's just right for your budget and your size room. But I would start at the 3M Filtrete model.
That's a good idea. Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you very much, gentlemen. I really appreciate this.
Oh, of course. If you have any other questions, get back in touch with us.
Absolutely. Our pleasure in it. And I admire you for being proactive on all of this, because a lot of people are just ignoring the fact of the indoor air quality, but not Terry in Oklahoma. That's great, Terry. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, you can buy air purifiers for $20, but guess what? They're little tiny, they hardly make any noise, they don't take up any space, and they're so affordable. Yeah, but who knows what they're doing? I don't know if they're really doing anything. So if you're serious about it, you just have to spend the $150.
each and every week we hear people talking about how much they love the simple solutions. Joe, what do you have for us this hour?
Okay, Danny, every home's plumbing system has shutoff valves, right? And it's simply for stopping the flow of water for maintenance reasons, if you're putting in a new sink or something like that, or in case of emergency, of course. And by the way, everyone in the house, including children, should know where these valves are, where they're located, so that they can you can find them like near the water meter, under sinks, behind toilets, because if something happens, you want to turn that water off as quickly as possible. However, it's important to exercise these valves simply by opening and closing them. Now, you only have to do this maybe once a year. But if you don't do that, because you're doing that to ensure they're operating properly, because in case of an emergency, you go to operate it, go to shut off the water, and the valve's not working, then what do, right? And the reason you do that is because neglected valves have a tendency to seize up over time, making it impossible to shut off the water. So if you just open and close them, like I said, even if you just do it once a year, if you find one that's stuck and you can't turn it, well, now's the time to call a plumber and get it replaced before there's an emergency. So that's a simple solution. Find those valves and open and close them at least once a year.
And that same thing goes for any of the toilets that you have, the little water cutoff there, because I can't tell you how many times when we've been remodeling a bathroom and pulling everything out, and you disconnect the toilet to move it out of the way, and that valve will not shut it off completely.
Right.
Now, you can put a little Tupperware pan under it, but hey, that fills up really, really quick.
Yeah, it does.
I've even taken a hose before and connected a hose with it and drained it down into the toilet area there, the toilet drain itself.
Right.
But that's not what you want. Like you said, exercising them will definitely help a lot on that. And another thing, Joe, I was thinking about, because my mind works in such a weird way, I was thinking of
I never noticed that.
Of how you can set up to be a hero, So
Right.
Let's say you slipped in before Marla went into the restroom and you turned the hot water off.
Right.
And then she said, there's no hot water. There's no hot water here. I can't, wash my hands, brush my teeth, things like that. And you'll go, well, let me go check the water heater. And then turn the valve back on, hang out in the garage for a few minutes and said, honey, I had to rebuild that whole circuit panel. And I had, and there was deposits and I had to completely replumb the thing, but you're good now. Go ahead. So you think you could pull that off, Joe?
Yeah, you think she can, as long as the water's running hot, just go down, fix it, and let me know when it's ready. That's all. She doesn't need all that.
No details.
It's like when you're flying, you take a flight and the pilot comes on to tell you where he's going to fly and what he's going to, like, okay, good, just do what you need to do. Let me just get to my destination somewhere close to when I'm supposed to land. I don't know what you're doing up there. Just do it.
Now it's time for our podcast question of the week. This one comes from Pat in Maine. Dear Danny, I'm at the end of my rope. 4 years ago, I hired a company to renovate my small and only bathroom. They charged me $17,500.
Wow. That sounds high.
The job was to take 2 weeks. The first subcontractor was horrible, and the bathroom had to be ripped out again and redone. 2 weeks turned into a 5-month nightmare. Now I have a leak from the shower and cannot find the source of the leak. Each time we shower, there's a puddle on the basement floor. I dealt with the company and received a refund of some of the money, but I signed a release so I can't go back after them. So who should I contact to help me figure this out? Thanks so much. The shower drain is not the source. Regards, Pat in Scarborough, Maine. Oh, man, that is
Can I just say that Danny and I love being on the radio and talking to people all over the country, but we get absolutely no pleasure out of answering these types of questions. Thankfully, we don't get them that often, but my gosh, to go through all that, if you had spent $30 to try to get your bathroom remodeled and you got a lousy job, okay. But almost $18,000 and this poor woman's going through all this. I mean, that's just awful.
Boy, I hate that. I wish we had the ability to just jump in the car, truck, plane, whatever, and run by and see what we can do. Well, Pat, let us point you in the right direction here, hopefully. You mentioned that the shower drain is not the source, but the shower hub, that is the drain that's part of the bottom part of the shower or tub, could easily be the problem. And, so many times people will not take the precautions they need to truly waterproof the pan in a shower, and that can be a big problem. Joe, I know you explored quite a bit in your ceramic tile book that you wrote that was so successful in how to properly do a pan. And man, if you don't do it right the first time,
That's
if you
right.
have a stray nail here and there, or the membrane that you put down, has a little tear in it, it will always leak because ceramic's not going to keep the water out.
That's exactly right. Unfortunately, there's like one way to tile a shower floor and do it correctly, and there's about 1,000 ways to do it wrong. So it's done wrong all the time. And that's exactly right. The water is going to get through the tile. It doesn't matter what kind of tile you put down, doesn't matter how well you grout it. The water is going to get through it. Okay, so when it gets through it, what happens? Well, the drain systems are specifically designed to capture that excess water and filter it back into the drain pipe. All too often, that system is plugged up with mortar, or it's not done correctly, or the rubber coating is going over it instead of under it. Like I said, there's a lot of ways to do it wrong. So you may not think it's the drain, and it actually turns out to be the drain. I mean, the only other thing it could be would be a water supply pipe leading to the shower, and that would be, I would think, relatively easy to diagnose. So, I mean, unfortunately for Pat, there's no easy fix. You have to tear that all out. There's no way to really repair it without opening up that drain system where that shower was built.
And one of the things you might want to try is get a friend to be there in the shower or down below with a flashlight, and then take a piece of saran wrap and put it right over the drain and start running some water. And put just a little bit of water in there. First of all, that way you're keeping the drain from receiving any water. And then start pouring some water in there and get it up maybe a 1/2 inch or 1 inch high. Again, I'm using, a piece of plastic to keep the water out of there. And then have someone underneath with a bright flashlight to see if it leaks. Then raise it up a little bit more, put a little more water in there, maybe 1.5 inches of water, and see if it leaks. Then pull the plastic away and let the water rush through that drain, and then see if that leaks. So it may narrow down where the problem is, and hopefully, Pat, you'll be able to use some type of sealant around the drain to work with it, maybe take the strainer off the top of it, add additional high-quality caulk around it, and there's a chance that you'll be able to stop the leak from that standpoint. And if you feel like you maybe need to have a plumber or a ceramic professional over, they may be able to point to it as well, because all of us have seen a lot of common problems like that. This, as always, we hate to hear problems that homeowners are having, and hope that you'll be able to find a very good solution to it from that standpoint. Now, this is a question that came in to our podcast, and we would love to get a question from you, and you can send that by going to todayshomeowner.com/podcast. I always like to say thank you so much for taking the time to send in some great reviews on the Today's Homeowner podcast. We really appreciate it, and we appreciate you listening to our podcast each and every week. I'm Danny Lifford, along with my buddy Joe Truini. We'll talk with you soon.